ସେଇଟା ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଇଗଲାଣି, ସେଇଟା ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଇଗଲାଣି। ଏପଟେ ସାଉଣ୍ଡ ନାହିଁ ମୋବାଇଲରେ। ସାଉଣ୍ଡ ହେଇଗଲା। ଏଇଟାକୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଇଗଲା। ସାଉଣ୍ଡ ନାହିଁ। ଏଇଟା ବି ସେମିତି ହଉଛି।
Hello, am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
I think there are some sounds coming from the other side. Uh, I'm starting. I'm starting this. Wait, give me 1 second.
କଣ କରିବ ଆଉ ଶୁଣିବନି କିଛି। ଏଇଟା କି ଶୁଭୁନି, ଏଇଟା କି ଶୁଭୁନି ଆଉ। ସାଉଣ୍ଡ ଫୁଲ ଅଛି ତ, ସାଉଣ୍ଡ ଫୁଲ ଅଛି, କିଛି ଶୁଭୁନି। ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଇଗଲାଣି।
So, in yesterday class, we have discussed. We have discussed about the evolution or growth of administrative theory. So, in this class, we'll go. I think some sound disturbance is coming from the other side. It would be better if all the participants please mute your mic so that I would be able to communicate to you properly. So it's a request.
କିଛି ଶୁଭୁନି, ଏଇଟା ନା ଦିଟା ହେଲା ବେଳକୁ କଣ
So today we'll begin with the discussion of two major theories which has been referred as classical theories in public administration.
ସେଇଟା
So
ସାଉଣ୍ଡ
they
ବନ୍ଦ
are,
କରିଦିଅ।
one is scientific management theory and the other one is the administrative management theory. So as I told you in yesterday class, if we
ନେଇ
uh,
ଯାଅ
if
ନେଇଯାଅ
we
କେମିତି କହିବି ସେ ପଢଉଛନ୍ତି ପରା ଡିଷ୍ଟର୍ବ
examine that how the growth of administrative theory has evolved. So basically, such kind of inquiry
ଯୋଉଠି ହଉ
was evolved in the context of United States of America. So the American contribution towards the theoretical generalization on administrative
Dear
theory.
learner, kindly put your mic in the mute mode. There is a lot of resound is coming. Disturbance is there. So what ma'am is taught you is not possible to audible to all of you. So kindly put your mic in the mute mode.
Okay,
ଅନ୍ୟମାନେ
thank
କମ୍ପ୍ଲେନ
you.
କଲେ ଅନ୍ୟମାନେ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେନ କଲେ ରୁହ ପାଟି କରନି ତମେ ସେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି
मैडम आपका mic टाକୁ mute କରନ୍ତୁ. Kindly put your mic in the mute mode.
Okay, thank you. So, as I told you in yesterday class, so far as theoretical generalization in administrative public administration is concerned, so most of them are basically American centered, and particularly after the publication of Woodrow Wilson's article in 1887, that which talked about the study of administration. So the understanding have come up that administration needs to be studied independently. So in that process, there is no need for any kind of assistance of political theory. So earlier politics politics was considered to be the main driving force in shaping that how administration would be. But with the publication of the Woodrow Wilson's article, a thinking had created, a thinking had been generated, particularly in American society, that public administration could be studied independently, and such independence could be pursued with the theoretical generalization that administration needs to be conducted in an impartial or impersonal way. So, administration needs to be neutral from the political process, because the job of the administration is to conduct or is to execute the law, the public policy programs. So, in that regard, when the guidelines, when the legal framework is already been provided to them, so under that circumstances, public administration needs to be given certain autonomy so that it could be able to achieve its desired end. So with this actually, the dichotomy, politics administration dichotomy being a paradigm have emerged, and subsequently such paradigm got the intellectual boost due to the publication of James Goodnow's work on politics and administration, and subsequently it was the researches on principles on public administration supported the idea that administration could be studied independently. So in that regard, if we look at the theoretical developments in public administration discipline is concerned, that we are getting two major theories. One is scientific management theory, and another one is administrative management theory. So these two theoretical strands, they have supported, or you could say that they have complemented towards the sustenance of the first two paradigms of public administration, that the politics and administration dichotomy, whose central premise was that there must be separation while from the politics, the administration must be separated from the politics in order to maintain its neutrality, or in order to maintain its efficacy, so that it would be able to achieve its desired end. And in that process, organizations, particularly the bureaucracy or public organization, they could be an enabling factor in shaping the objectives of the policy, or objectives of the government, or also objectives of the law. So in that regard, the how the organization needs to be created, what should be the focus of the organization, keeping in view those concerns, these two theories, they have been conceptualized. And if we begin with the scientific management theory, let me say you very clearly, though this theory was conceptualized in the setup of industrial undertaking, in the setup of industrial organization, because while we are studying public administration, we essentially focusing on the government offices, the public organizations, and particularly the bureaucracy. So in that circumstances, if we locate the genesis of scientific management theory, so it must be very interesting and also as well as surprising for the scholars of public administration, those who are reading it in the present times, that scientific management essentially evolves its philosophical basis from the industrial organization, and the method, the philosophy which emerged out of this, which that was subsequently influenced public administration practice and also the public administration discipline. So let's have a look into that, what is the scientific management, why actually scientific management is essential in order to study the public administration as an independent discipline, and how actually it shaped, it addressed the purpose of public administration. So with this, I would like to share certain slides, or present certain slides before you. So okay, why is actually I'm not getting the command? Is it visible to you?
No, ma'am. Not visible, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, just give me 1 second. Why it is not showing in the display actually? Okay, just Just 1 second. I am exiting the room. Is it visible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Visible now.
Okay, okay. So, so while we are talking about the scientific management approach, so basically, that here actually we are observing that whether there is science or whether there is any kind of best principle in the study of organization. So, the historical background of this, the genesis of scientific management theory is concerned that it evolved during the initial phase of the 19th century, particularly during 1910 to 1920, that the expansion of scientific management theory was seen to be visible in the Western society, particularly that where industrialization has already been expanded. So, so this theory came in the wake of new industrial revolution that has taken place during the latter part of the 19th century. And this approach basically aims to attempt to solve the problems of complex organization that have emerged as a result of industrial development. So as I told you that as European and American society, both of them were undergoing the industrial revolution. So and during industrial revolution, what happened? That massive migration took place. Persons from rural area to them hugely migrated to the urban areas, and in that process that new forms of organizations have come up, and in order to meet the complex necessity of new form of organization, that different, it has led towards the development of new knowledges as well. So, scientific management approach is one among them, and this approach is an attempt to solve the problems of complex organization that have emerged as a result of industrial development. So, it was Louis Bandis who first used the word scientific management. However, it was Frederick Taylor who was considered to be the father of the scientific management, because Frederick Taylor have made significant contribution towards establishing scientific management approach as a theory in the study of management and also in the study of public administration as well. So if you goes by his work, so basically he begins with the Louis Bandin's work, the task system, task
Hello, ma'am.
management.
Can I ask something?
Ah, yes.
Ma'am, please repeat what is the meaning of scientific management?
I have not come to that point actually. I am just talking about now the genesis, the background, the historical context under which scientific management as a theory have come up. I'll proceed to the meaning. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
I'll proceed to the meaning, but you need to understand that actually what led scientific management as a theory to evolve. Um, um, are you acquainted with Odia?
Yes, ma'am.
ହଁ ତ ଆମକୁ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ବୁଝିବାକୁ ପଡିବ ଯେ ସାଇଣ୍ଟିଫିକ ମ୍ୟାନେଜମେଣ୍ଟ ଗୋଟେ ଥିଓରି ହିସାବରେ କୋ ହିଷ୍ଟୋରିକାଲ କଣ୍ଟେକ୍ସଟରେ ଏମର୍ଜ କଲା ସୋ ଡ୍ୟୁରିଂ ଦ୍ୟାଟ ଦ ଟାଇମ ପିରିୟଡ which it is been referred from the initial phase of the 19th century, the 1910 to 1920, that actually this phase in during that phase actually both European society and American society, they have undergone massive transformation because industrialization has been had been expanded in their society. Okay, so in order to respond towards industrialization, many new forms of organization have come up. Not only the role of public bureaucracy has enhanced, but at the same time it has led to create trade unions, management bodies in the industries. So in that regard, scientific management approach have come up in order to solve the crisis particularly looming over the complex organizations like industrial establishment. So definitely when we are saying that there is an industry, so automatically we are also observing there must be a trade union. So trade, presence of industry, presence of trade union, so these things are actually been evolved when the industrialization process itself got expanded. So when massive workers worked in the industry and in order to protect their rights, their claims, they formed the union. And in order to negotiate with the trade union, the industry have also created the management body. So here, historically, the industrial management body and trade union, they always found to be in opposition to each other. So at that time, that while this kind of conflict, obviously it is obvious in nature, it is automatic in nature, but at the same time, industry has also to perform for productivity. So in that regard, management has the role that how to actually boost productivity while not also to compromise the needs of the workers. So in that regard, scientific management as a theory have come up in order to solve the problems of industrial establishment. So while we are saying that who actually first used the term, so it was not Frederick Taylor, so it was Louis Bandens, and Frederick Taylor actually got inspired by the work of Louis Bandens, particularly the work of the task system, task management, and subsequently that Frederick Taylor became more prominent figure in expanding the theoretical theory of scientific management in the mainstream literature. So here that it is declared that management is a true science resting upon clearly defined laws, rules, and principles. And he also used very important tools in order to show that how actually the industry itself would be able to achieve productivity. And he was always interested in improving upon the techniques of management. He emphasized on the scientific way of developing the tools as well as scientific way of performing the job. So he had also the passion for efficiency and scientific way of work in the organization. So if you read the history, if you read the personal background of Frederick Taylor, you would be able to know that he was an engineer. And after completing his engineering degree, he joined as a worker. Then subsequently he got promoted to the post of manager, and during that process actually he got the opportunity to develop the idea like scientific management. So his contribution towards scientific management, one could be ascertained from his major writings like a piece rate system, shop management, art of coating metals, the principles of scientific management, the testimony before a special committee of the House of Representatives. So all these are his work. Okay, but the principles of scientific management, which got published in the year 1911, was actually the major breakthrough of his work, and which made him the father of the scientific management theory. So here, while propounding the principles of scientific management theory, he argues, here I am coming to the meaning of scientific management, that he provides the argument that best management is, one could say, that which could be taken as a best management. So best management is the one who continues, who works as per the scientific principle. Then what is this scientific principle? This scientific principle is something which is which must develop the knowledge of learning the best way to do one thing. Okay, so if the industrial organization, while undertaking many activities, like suppose you take a an industry which is creating whose job is to create shoes for the people. Okay, so in that regard, so every worker and the management must have a shared understanding or agreed understanding that there is a one particular best way to make shoe. Okay, so there may be various way to make shoes, but here the job of the management is to identify the best way to prepare or to make shoe, so that it could be followed in a massive manner by all the workers or all the laborers or all the employers in the concerned organization. Then only productivity could be a possibility. So here, that these are certain basic principles he propounded, that observation of work through time study. Okay, the time study is also a part of his work. Then differential rate system for completing piecework. Then payment to men, not to positions. Okay, so here, that the contribution towards the scientific management has been supported with the three basic principles, where the he concluded that any work that could be best, or any work that could be good, which would be determined through, or which would be resulted out of the observation. So suppose you take an example, like if you have gone through, I will suggest you please read his original book, the scientific management, the principles of scientific management. The original book text is also available in the Google Scholar. You can download it, you can read it also. So there he is arguing that whenever any kind of work is being conducted by a particular organization, so management has the role to observe that how that work is being conducted, and through observation management would be able to come to an come to a conclusion that the best how to do the work in a best effective way. And by ascertaining that, then automatically that the time for doing that work will be also be identified. So there they would be able to the standard, they would be able to also the identify the time, that by which time they would be able to complete the work. So in that regard, they could come up with to contribute towards the productivity of the organization. Then the differential rate system for completing the piece work. So the piece work here, that the every kind of work, like suppose any product which is been produced by a particular industries, so that work needs also need to be undertaken through different kinds of workers. So the division of work uh, is already continues to be there. So here that he is arguing about that to fix a differential rate system in order to keep in view the productivity of the organization. Then the payment to men, not to positions. So here he essentially pointing towards the productivity of the person who is engaged in that particular job. So that person may be somebody, that person, whether if that person is a laborer, if that person is a worker not into the managerial position, but if that person has been able to perform the best, has been able to deliver the product as per the prescribed rules, as per the prescribed guidelines given by the organization, then automatically that person deserve the best payment. So here he adhered to the principle of payment to men, not to position. Then in his articles on soft management also, he focused basically on organization and management of works. He dealt about the need to maintain low production unit cost and payment of high wages. So here, that as most of the business organization, industrial organization, that if you go detail into their functioning, then you would be able to understand that the core thinking persist across the organization, that how to actually produce more, how to deliver more uh, while maintaining the low production cost unit. Okay, so here the input cost needs to be uh, low as far as possible, but so far as the output is concerned, the production is concerned, it must be given the higher end. And here also the payment of wages, because so far as the productive, the to keep in view the productivity of the organization, the wages has also been determined in the organization. So the payment of high wages also needs to be sustained while applying the scientific methods of research, standardization of working conditions, need for training, cooperative relations between workers and management. Okay, so here he talked about that how scientific management work need to be conducted in an organization. So it must begin with low production unit cost, then also there must be provision for payment of high wages, then also that there must be provision for standardization of working conditions. Like we can just say that workers, the while preparing the product of the concerned organization, they could work for day and night, or they could work in an unhygienic health conditions or unhygienic workplace. So there must be certain kind level of standardization, so that the quality of the product would be ensured. Then they must be given training. As I told you, that one best way, or one best way to locate that how the product could be come up in a good condition or in a best condition. So the one best way needs to be identified, and that one best way to prepare that product to be imparted in the form of training. So here actually, if you read details of the scientific management theory, here Taylor is not asking that worker needs to apply his creativity. Rather, the worker needs to follow the method prescribed by the management, because management already have identified that how the best product could be created. So by getting training from the management that the how the best product which is required by, or which is supposed to be produced by that organization, then the worker would be able to deliver best. And this could be also possible through the cooperative relations between the workers and the management. So he actually worked at that Midwell Steel Company, and his close observation and study of different operations in different factories and made him know towards the defects of their management. So what actually motivates Taylor to thought about that how that best method could be explored. So in that regard, actually, while he noticed defects at the level of management, so what are those defects? There are defects like lack of clarity of responsibilities by workers and management, lack of standards of work, restricted output because of the soldering of work, lack of job clarity, which promotes soldering of work, then lack of scientific base for decisions, then lack of division of work, then placement of work at different jobs without considering their ability, skills, aptitude, and interest. So these are the defects which Taylor had identified as defects in the existing management, and in order to counter those defects, so he thought about that the scientific management principle could be the best way to overcome all these defects in the organization, and which definitely would have a positive impact on the productivity of the organization. Okay, so in that regard, we his work on art of cutting metals is based on extensive research of thousands of experiments conducted over a period of 26 years, and he developed instruments for cutting of steel, studied motion and time, and analyzed how workers handle materials, machines, and tools when they perform different works. So here the cutting of steel also need the not just certain idea, but here the cutting of steel also to be supported with the best knowledge that how to cut the steel in a best way, and in that process the role of the motion and time is also very relevant. So in that regard, how materials needs to be handled, how the workers needs to perform well, so all these things here he, while taking into account all the experiences, he created he developed the scientific management principle. So here that Taylor felt that there is a best way to do every work. Okay, so this is the crux of scientific management. This is the central premise of scientific management, that scientific management believes that scientific management uh, believes on the proposition that there is a best way to do every work, and scientific selection of right men for right job is essential for maximum production in any organization. So in our day to day activity we may do different kinds of work. Okay, like being a student, you may have your idea that how to read, how to learn, how to discuss a concept. Okay, but all of your friends idea may not be similar with your idea. So if we apply the scientific management logic over here, set so here we need to identify that what is the best way to read a book. Okay, so in that, while we want to read a book, we need just not to learn the gist of the book, but also we need to finish it in time, but also we need to know that what would be the utility of that book in future. And here of course it must also enable us that to get a proper understanding. So Taylor here, so I told you just this very simple example over here. So while we are going back to the industrial organization, so industrial organization, they are conducting different activities relating towards the product generation. Like you take the example like a food industry, the industry producing biscuits in the market. So you make also come across, you might have come across with various brands on different kinds of biscuits. So what is unique, so every organization or every brand try to justify that okay, their brand carries the most best taste of that biscuit. So here this best, okay, this best way to do, this best way to prepare the biscuit, here the concerned brand or the concerned organization must have that formula, that how they are going to procure the biscuits so that it would be popularized in the market. So besides, so here that they must have taken off certain kinds of particular way to prepare that biscuit so that it could be termed as best. So here Taylor felt that there is a best way to do every work and scientific selection. So here we need also human resources, and such human resources needs to be selected on the basis of scientificism. And so here the concerned management needs to engage the right person in the right job. So we cannot just engage somebody who is really good in writing, could be given with certain kinds of manual work. So in that regard, so the management must have the ability to identify that who is fit for what job, so that it will have a positive implication on the maximum production in any organization. So these are about that once again, that how actually the industrial revolution. So in industrial, so actually uh, industrial revolution resulted into what? Any guess? Why actually industrial revolution had undertaken? Hmm? Any guess? Hello, am I audible to you?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
please repeat the question.
The question is that actually why industrial revolution, what was the necessity of industrial revolution, why actually it was happened?
Ma'am, I think there must have a systematic problem in doing work.
Hmm?
Ma'am, there are changes necessary because for improvement and development.
Oh, more, but why actually ହଁ ଯୋଉଟା ତମେ କହିଲ ଯେ improvement development, ତ industrialization ହେଲେ କ'ଣ ହବ?
Ma'am, economic development of a nation and sustainability.
ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଆଲାଇଜେସନ ଫଳରେ କ'ଣ ହେଲା ଯେ massive production ହେଲା, massive production କ'ଣ ପାଇଁ, ମାନେ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଆଲାଇଜେସନ ଟା actually କ'ଣ ପାଇଁ ଦରକାର ହେଲା? ନେସେସିଟି ଥିଲା, ନିଡ୍ ଥିଲା?
Yes, ma'am, necessity.
ତ ସେଇ ଯୋଉ ନେସେସିଟି ତମେ ଯୋଉ କହୁଛ, ସେଇ ନେସେସିଟି actually କୋଉ ପ୍ରକାରର ଇକୋନୋମିଟାକୁ ଏକ୍ସପାଣ୍ଡ କଲା? Capitalistic economy ko it has expanded. Okay, so industrial revolution actually have come up with an understanding that through it capitalism would be able to expand. Okay, because before while we are going back to the pre-industrial society, କୋଉ ପ୍ରକାର ସୋସାଇଟି, ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଆଲ ସୋସାଇଟି ପୂର୍ବରୁ କୋଉ ପ୍ରକାର ସୋସାଇଟି ରହୁଥିଲା? ଫ୍ୟୁଡାଲ ସୋସାଇଟି। ଯଦି ୟୁରୋପକୁ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ତାହେଲେ the feudal society was persisting. But in an industrial society, that here uh, the investment, the capital investment led towards the generation of the wealth, and such kind of investment also open up the possibility for the massive production and of course the expansion of the market. So if industrialization would not be there, then automatically market expansion also would not be a possibility. So, as capitalism as a mode of economy have come against the feudalistic economy, so that's why it requires an industrial society in order to expand its ways. So that's why there was an industrial revolution, and of course when there is industrial revolution, so we need much product, we need much product, and also this product needs to be consumed by the society. Okay, are you getting my point? So while we are saying the industrialization is happening, so while we are going to the market, we are getting so many products on a particular, so many brands on a particular product. Suppose you want to go for the purchase a shoe. So while you are going to purchase a shoe, nowadays so many brands are available in the market. Am I wrong? Hello?
No, ma'am.
Huh. So this is the product of industrialization. So if here that market has been expanded and it needs to be functional, and in order to make it functional, the industries are there to supply the product adequately. Okay. So here, but the point is that expansion of industrialization essentially not about only about consumption. Expansion of industrialization has also come up with different kinds of problem. So industry needs to perform efficiently, and at the same time industries they are also need to think about their profit. And so much the profit needs to be done at the expense of the cost of production. So therefore the cost of production needs to be reduced, and this can be achieved through the two pronged strategy. That one is related to improving the technology and the techniques of work along with the efficient management of workers. So it is quite obvious when there is an industry, so definitely the majority of the population is in the worker section. So definitely there must be continuous demand from the part of the workers to the management to increase their salary, to provide them perks, to also take into account their leave conditions, the working conditions. So in that regard, always management has to search out the techniques how to actually efficiently manage workers who are working in the concern organization. And at the same time that they need to also come up with the technology so that they would be able to produce more. So it is not just about the manual work, that it is about that how far the technology could be used in order to produce more and more product. That is one concern. The second concern is about the expansion of market to the new colonies. Just I now said to you, that new colonies, here it is mentioned that of course Europe and America they had experienced industrialization before 1930s. Okay, but if you go by the history, so after 1945, what happened? That new nation states have created, that many of the states who were under the British colonialism, they got independence, and India was one among them. So, so while industrialization was expanded at Europe and in America. So their concern was that also that where it could be supplied. So it is not just about their own society. They were also pushing all those supplies to the colonies, so that in the colonies people they would purchase it, and automatically profit will go to them. So that was the pressure for the industries, that they need to play a very they need to play a very constructive role towards the expansion of the market. And this market is not just limited to the Europe and America, but also to the subsequent the colonies, and which subsequently becomes the third world states. uh, and here that they provided opportunity to develop new thinking, so that production could be enhanced. And Taylor here, Frederick Taylor, was trying to address the first concern of the industrial society. So Frederick Taylor's concern was not essentially that how actually market will be expanded. Rather, the first concern that how efficiency, how cost of production could be reduced, and also how to increase the profit. So therefore, he emphasized more on scientific knowledge of doing things and scientific way of managing organization. So this is the thing. This is the slide, that how the deficiencies in management could be overcome. So, in that regard, Taylor formulated those principles of scientific management. So, he first prioritized that the development of a true science of work. Okay, the method of doing a particular work needs to be standardized. Okay, so here such kind of standardization um, um, uh, brings the tag that this is the best way to do the work. Suppose if we take the multinational companies, suppose like the companies, they are producing packaged juice. So in their brand, they are writing, they are in their advertisement, they are showing that they are procuring those oranges, those fruits from those fields. So and they are processing in a particular method. So these, while advertising all these things, they want to show to the consumer that they have already developed a true science of work, and the product comes out of this true science of work could be trusted, or could be consumed, or could be best for the consumer. So in that regard, that it is more closer towards the science. Okay, so the development of a true science of work, how the concerned work needs to be conducted. Like you take the example of um, any product. So while we are going for a branded product, so we are expecting that the product must be very finished one. Okay, so finished one, the elegance, the texture of that product must be prepared in such a way, then automatically our focus on that product will go fixed on it, and we could say that okay, this is the best product. So while we are labeling it as the this is the best one, so automatically we are consenting in our conscious stage that okay, that the concerned organization might have got the true science of work, so that's why the product is like this. Okay, then the scientific selection of workmen and their progressive development. So how actually need to select workmen itself is a very challenging task for the organization. Okay, so the workman, if the workman is not really feel motivated to work in the concerned organization, so the here he discussed it in the form of soldering. So sometimes that while if you are acquainted with the Marxian literature, So Marx was very much critical about that that workers are really not very much having any kind of ownership uh, uh, over that product, the kind of engagement they are doing with the kind of work they are doing while preparing that product. So in that process, their labor, they are been alienated from their labor. But if you read Frederick Taylor, so here he actually not believing on offering too much liberty to the workman. Rather, workman needs to work in a such a way that that he must abide by the scientific way, the method provided by the concerned organization. So in that regard, the selection of the workmen must be scientific, and so that they would be able to complement towards the productive development. Then bringing together of science of work and scientifically selected workers. Of course, if both of them can't go together, then it is obvious, then it could not be work out. So there must be an agreement, there must be a consensus among the workers about the science of work. So each of them have to follow the same method, because they need to be convinced that they are following the best method of doing the work. So that's why there must be acceptance at the level of the workers that the science of work which is been provided to them by the organization, they need to carry out. Then the equal division of work and the responsibility between the management and the workers. So of course, the division of, if you take into account the division of work, it also continues to be a principle public administration, because division of work actually reduced the scenario of overlapping of work, and also reduced the case of burdensome, the case of the scope of burden on some worker. So there must be an equal division of work, and here that the responsibility between the management and the workers needs to be worked out properly. So these are the principles of scientific management. Okay, now to the first one, the development of true science work. Okay, so the first point is saying about the best way of doing every job. So any work, just I told you that any work which is been conducted by the concerned organization, that they must have a understanding that this is the best way to do this job, and this can be achieved by systematic study of any work and replacing the old thumb rule method by developing a scientific method. So here, that how to actually do a particular work in the organization, that there must be a systematic study. Okay, and so it just cannot be done like the old thumb rule method. So here the concern is that by developing the idea that how to do the work perfectly, or you could say that scientifically, so here that Taylor had focused into the observing the patterns. Okay, the observe how the work needs to be observed, and subsequently to locate that which pattern would be the best one. Then this requires gathering mass of traditional knowledge, recording it, tabulating it, and in many cases finally reducing it to laws, rules, and even to mathematical formula. Okay, so like you are in a into an organization which is producing drugs. So there, that drugs and medicine, so there actually that while preparing the medicine, that which would be the effective one, which would be the best one, looking towards the composition applied in the concerned drugs or medicine, that the company must come up with a particular way, that what would be the composition of different chemicals, different materials, so that the concerned drugs or concerned medicine could be have a positive impact on the specific diseases. So here the formulas, they matters, and this could be done through by observing the traditional knowledge, and also that subsequently observing the experiences, the patterns of doing that work. And latter, these laws and rules are to be applied to everyday work of all workmen of the organization. The scientific method of work saves worker from unnecessary criticism of the boss and the management to get maximum work from the worker. It also results in establishing a large daily task to be done by the qualified workers under optimum conditions. So here it is clearly saying that there is very limited scope for the worker to apply his own personal belief while preparing, or method while preparing the product. Okay, so that here, the by following the scientific method which is already been accepted by the concerned organization, by following that pattern, automatically worker would be able to save his job, or he, or not invite any kind of unnecessary criticism from the boss. And also in that way, management will also get the opportunity to get maximum work done from the worker. So, and also it would result in establishing a large daily task to be done by the qualified workers under optimum condition. So in this way, the true science of work could be executed, and where the role of the management would be to get the maximum work by providing the one best method uh, to the workers, that by following which they would be able to produce more, and of course they would not be considered as some problem for the management also. This is relating to scientific selection and progressive development of workmen. Okay. So basically, here Taylor had provided or made the role of management as prominent, to study the character, the nature, and the performance of each worker, with a view to finding out his limitations and possibilities for his development. And he believed that every worker has potentialities for development, and every worker must be systematically and thoroughly trained. And scientific selection involves selecting a right person for a right job. It is also necessary to ensure that the employee accepts the new methods, tools, and conditions willingly and enthusiastically. So there should be opportunities for advancement to do the job to the fullest realization of his normal capabilities. So here one thing is very clear. So while making the sign, just a second. So while making the scientific selection of workers and their progressive development, management will play the central role. Okay. So earlier used to be the case that the owner of the industry, then the worker. But here we are getting the role of management at the middle level, who is supposed to negotiate for the interest of the industry, or for the interest of the owners of the industry with the worker, so that the concerned industry would be able to run smoothly. So in that regard, that management has to take into account the concern for the productivity, effective productivity, and on the other hand, the management also need to take care of the worker. But if you follow the Taylor's writing, no doubt he argued about that the high wage, the provision like high wage needs to be there, and here the management must understand that payment needs to be made not to the position, and particularly that the selection of the workers need to be monitored by the concerned management. So in that process actually he neglected, or he also, you could say that he removed his attention from the interest of the workers, that the that how actually they could be able to negotiate their rights with the management. So these are all about that the scientific selection and progressive development of workmen. So here another thing I would like to add, that here the development of workmen essentially also depend on that to what extent that workman is sticking to the rules prescribed by the management regarding the method of the work. So if he is really wanted his progress, so he need to perform in a best way as per the methods prescribed by the organization. So this is the way scientific selection and progressive development of workmen has been discussed. Then the next point is about the bringing together of science of work and scientifically selected workers. So in the third principle of scientific management is bringing of science of work and scientifically selected and trained workmen together. So he says bringing together advisely, because you may develop all the science that you please, but and you may scientifically select and train workmen just as much as you please, but unless some men bring the science and workmen together, all your labor will be lost. So such kind of statement or such kind of thinking might have had come up with the concern that the presence of trade union should not be a botheration for the management. So in that regard, that the workman, they must be ready to follow the science of the work, and here the management of course do have a central role. So Taylor felt it is exclusive responsibility of the management to do this job. He believed that workers are always willing to cooperate with the management, but there is more opposition from the side of the management. So he was really not worried about that there might be problem from the side of the workers. He was really thought in a way that there might be opposition from the side of the management. So in that way actually he developed his argument. Then the division of work and responsibility between worker and management. So traditionally the worker bears the entire responsibility of the work, and the management has lesser responsibility, as I also told you earlier, that initially that the owner and the worker, the industrial owner and the worker, um, that kind of hierarchy continues to prevail, but in the middle level the role of the management was not prominent. But with the expansion of industrialization, the complexities of the organization has been expanded, and it has actually increased the role of the management. So therefore, that here that Taylor viewed that if there would be equal responsibility between worker and management, then automatically the management would bear the responsibility to for the productivity in the organization. So it is not just about the concern of the worker, it is also the concern of the management how to ensure productivity, and also enable worker or motivate worker to do the work. So this division creates understanding and mutual dependence between them. This results in elimination of conflict and mistrust between the worker and management. So Taylor thinks that scientific management can be justly and truthfully characterized as management in which harmony is the rule rather than discourse. So he anticipated a kind of situation where management would be able to create a condition of harmony in the industrial organization, so that there would be no conflict between the industry and the worker. So division of work and responsibility is a step towards that. So here let's have some that we have already discussed about the principles of scientific management. So if we take into account the thing that okay, if scientific management is saying good, everything good about that, okay, there must be the best way to do the work. We need to identify that. Then how the how the conflict between the industry and the worker would be reduced. But yeah, had it really been went on such way, so no doubt scientific management become a movement and offered solution to some of the industrial problems. But also it has been critiqued. It is critiqued on the ground that it was emerged at a time when capitalist development had reached the stage of requiring organizational changes in the functioning of industrial enterprise. So, as I told you, that with the commencement of modernity, okay, that the phase of renaissance, enlightenment, then subsequently new inventions, new scientific inventions, then subsequently industrialization, actually such a process has been facilitated with the development of capitalism as a mode of economy. And capitalism have come up against feudalism or as an alternative to feudalism, uh, which provided the impression that getting wealth is not been confined to the social status of a particular person. So in a pre-capitalist societies, that enjoying privileges continues to be on the hereditary basis. So those persons who were in the privileged social order, they continue to enjoy wealth, power, status on the basis of heredity, whereas capitalism, in exchange of that, offered the idea that no, if the individual has the ability, individual could pursue his dream to generate wealth. So in that regard, actually capitalism has been expanded, and it initiated with the process of industrialization. So here, the scientific management actually, as a being a theory, evolved at a time while capitalistic development was intending towards more towards expansion. Okay, not just been confined to the European society. It was actually intending to expand beyond the European society. So therefore, the objective was that in the domestic scenario or within the European society also, that in order to make acceptance, it requires certain kinds of organizational changes. And in that regard, scientific management been considered as something a very pro-capitalistic theory. Okay, so that is one of the critical ground to analyze that how scientific management is more lenient towards in protecting the interest of capitalism. Then also the critics considered that scientific management helped more the owners of industries than the workers. So the trade unions, if you take into account the role of trade unions, we are against the scientific management method. They considered Taylorism as not only destroying trade unionism but also destroying principles of collective bargaining. Okay, so trade unionism as a phenomenon which has been evolved also due to the expansion of industrialization. So nowadays we are observing that trade unionism itself is also being reduced. You could say that the new terrorism has now come up. So here actually the collective bargaining and the role of trade unionism has been reduced. So these are all about the scientific management theory. So now we need to have a look towards the administrative management theory. So while scientific management is talking about the productivity of the organization, the methods of the work, and how actually science of work could be identified, the administrative management as a theory is talking entirely about the organization. Okay, so in scientific management theory, though talks about the productivity of the organization, it is not talking about the entire aspects of the organization. But so far as administrative management theory is concerned, it is talking about the whole organization. So is it visible to you?
No, ma'am.
Hello?
No, ma'am.
One, okay. Now it is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So the administrative management as a theory, it talks about the entire organization. Okay, so so it the central premise it makes that the administration needs to be guided by certain kinds of principles. Okay, so in that regard, the principles may be managerial nature or also may be non-managerial in nature, so far as the bureaucratic principles are concerned, like hierarchy, unity of command. So these are actually essentially been founded in bureaucratic organizations. But so far as managerial principles are concerned, that it talks about division of labor, it talks about that planning, coordination, all these things. So administrative management, being a thought or being a theory, has been developed by the scholars like Henry Fayol, Mooney, Riley, Gulick, and Orwick. and Mary Parker Follett is considered to be the last person to propagate this approach. So these thinkers have certain common understanding and approach towards the understanding of organization. Or you could say, in other words, their theory is based on certain premises. Firstly, that they gave importance to the structure of administration. So nowadays, actually, the administrative management theory essentially not widely been read in organizations, but still the domination of scientific management still continues to be there. Like in the Indian context, we are still been guided by the scientific management theory, though administrative management theory is still found to be self-evident in the case of the organizations through principles. Like you take into account the case of any organization, so you will get hierarchy, you will get unity of command, span of control, and of course the centralization, decentralization, division of workers. But so far as the research is available on the various principles of administrative management, so most of the you will found researches on centralization and decentralization, but not very much researches on the thing like uh, hierarchy, or how hierarchy is being transformed, all these things. So uh, here that we need to get the understanding that what exactly this administrative management as a theory, it is offering to us. So here they gave importance to the structure of administration or organization. So I also told you while discussing the organization, then they considered that without structure organization cannot function. For them, structure is a device through which the human beings working in an organization are assigned the task and are related to each other. Okay, so structure is very much significant uh, for for administrative management theory. While for the scientific management theory, it is the productivity. Okay, so the purpose is the purpose of study, that how to achieve productivity. But for the scholars who are researching on administrative theoretical management theoretical tradition, they do believe that administration could be studied by sticking to by focusing attention on its structure. So without structure, organization could not be able to appreciate it properly. So as they have emphasized on the structure, they are also known as the structuralist. They believe that the effectiveness of organizations depend upon the type of organization. So structure molds the nature of human being according to the need of the organization. And for heroic, lack of design is illogical, cruel, wasteful, and inefficient. So if there would be design is lacking, then automatically that it will finally ending with illogical action, cruelty, and inefficiency. Then, secondly, they assume that there is universality of experience. These thinkers have developed certain principles of administration which they think are universally valid. So, in yesterday class, I told you that how actually the principles of public administration as a paradigm, it got challenged due to the emergence of new nation states, where the newly created bureaucracies or public organization, where it was expected that they were supposed to follow the principles of organization. So here that they got certain kinds of deviations uh, while making comparative studies between the bureaucracy located in western states and non-western states. So here such kind of deviations have come up with the understanding that the principles which considered to be universally valid across the societies or across the kind of bureaucracy existing in different states. So whether they are universally valid or not, it is a serious question to discuss. So, but the genesis of administrative management theory have come up with the understanding that the principles of administration are universally valid, and these principles are derived from the experience of industrial organizations. Muni observed that there is no principle in industrial organization as such that is not to be found in all other sphere. So that's why the principles which have been developed in industrial organization that continues to spread over in other form of organization. Then thirdly, they believe that the principles they have developed are scientifically valid since they are based on the industrial and military experience. So they cannot be considered to be imaginary. Okay. So if we read the case of unity of command, so it is a product of the military form of organization. So here that as those kinds of principles were quite prevalent in case of industrial and military organization, so definitely some validity would be sustained in their about their applicability in other organization. They are based on rigorous empirical observations, hence they have a scientific validity, and they consider that the application of such principle would ensure greater economy and efficiency in the organization. So these authors have sincerely believed that it is possible to develop a science of administration based on the experience of organization. So for administrative management, the scholars, okay, or for those scholars who believe, who pursued their interest in administrative management tradition, so they thought their entire proposition is based on the understanding that organization could be studied through its structure. Then secondly, organization also could be studied through the various principles operating within it. Okay, so with this, actually, they are claiming themselves to be universally valid as a theory, uh, as an alternative to the scientific management. So, in that regard, if we take into account the case of Henry Fayol, so Henry Fayol is regarded as the founder of managerial approach, and the scholar like Luther Gulick, Lyndall Warwick, they have been greatly influenced by his work, and Fayol's major contribution is his principles of administration. So basically, the 14 principles Fayol had contributed, they are division of work, authority and responsibility, discipline, unity of command, unity of direction, subordination of individual interest to the general interest, uh, centralization, line of authority, order, so initiative and harmony. So all these are coming under the Fayol's contribution as principles of administration. And Fayol derived the managerial functions into 5 elements. So they are planning, organization, command, coordination, and control. So, in Henry Fayol's writing, he not only talked about the principle, he also talked about the organizations, the structure, the structural aspect of the organization. So, organization has to, while structuring itself, its validity or its functioning as an organization needs to be exhibited through its managerial functions. Then he has also listed out certain other principles which he was found to be ambiguous while developing all those principles. So some of them describe the managerial activity, others lay down what manager should do, though they are limited in nature, but the Fellows principles have provided the basis for the development of principles of administration by latter thinker. So his work actually contributed towards the genesis of administrative management theory, uh, and provided the philosophical basis for further scholars to study the how the direction of administrative management theory could be. So while following his lines, the other scholars like Alan Campbell Riley and James De Mooney, in his their book The Onward Industry, so they provided a central framework laying down the principles of management. So they have attempted to provide an elaborated historical account of genesis of management and management thought. There appears to be some confusion regarding the use of the term principle used by them, but they appear to be a set of statements showing importance of leadership, authority, and coordination. And if we go by the James D. Mooney's work, so he, in his article in Papers on Science of Administration, maintained that it was coordination that to be the fundamental principle of any human organization. Okay, so here that if you go by the different contributions of various scholar, that definitely you will come across how coordination as a principle in the organization been considered could be considered as a primary or principle, because most of the scholars they have agreed that coordination to be the fundamental principle of any human organization. Then he further writes the term organization and the principle that govern it are inherent in every form of concerted effort, even where there are not more than two persons involved. So he takes the example of the effort of two men to move to a stone and says, here we have coordination, the first principle of organization. So they have just a very common examples to show that how the principles could be identified in our regular day-to-day activities while we are working or operating in any kind of organization. It is not just about only professional organization. In case of or public private organization, the public organization, of course, also in family, also that we are getting certain kinds of principles. So they also refer to the functional principles of organization. According to them, all jobs involve one of the three functions, like the determinative function, where the goal setting is a requirement. The goal setting means that the purpose of the organization needs to be determined so that the concerned organization would be able to move towards achieving that goal. Then the application function, acting purposively to achieve the goal. Then the interpretive function, the decision making aspect. So these are the three functions which makes a particular organization functional. So we cannot just watch the organization as a dormant entity. So while we are saying that there is an organization, or we are experiencing there is an organization, we must view it in terms of purpose, functionality. So in that regard, all these three functions needs to make a particular organization functional, what they are arguing. And also they argue that the management must be aware of these functions to be prepared to discharge them when necessary. Okay. So here also they are talking about the role of the management, of course. uh, but here they have given priority to the principal in comparison to the management. Management needs to learn about the principle so that it could be able to apply them while making organization functional. Thus, they have contributed to the development of managerial theory of administration. Then, while we are coming to the Luther Gulick and Linda Lodwick, so both of them actually had a very rich experience in the working of civil service and military organization, and also industrial organization. And so their experience in public administration and business administration actually has led them towards to make a contribution to develop certain principles. So they talked about the formal organizations where they were also being influenced by Frederick Taylor, and so Lyndall Warwick was rationalized the work process by bringing work together in a centralized area. Okay, so they have contributed to the development of classical theory of organization known as administrative management theory, and they believe that it is possible to develop a science of administration based on principles. Okay, so here that science of administration, of course, so when you have begun studying public administration, one of the question needs to be addressed, that whether public administration could be taken as a science or an art. So, in social science discipline, those disciplines which are claiming themselves as science, so they need to provide the argument that why they are considering themselves as the science. So here they need to focus on their methods of inquiry, their focus of the object of the study, and why they are calling themselves as a science, because they need to study, they need to explore the truth associated with the object of that subject. So here, if we consider the public administration, so of course you may come across with many arguments that whether public administration could be a science or an art or both. So here that if we go by the scientific management theory, administrative management theory, so all of them have generalized the concern that there is a possibility to develop a science of administration based on principle, because these principles are also telling us the truth how organization is running. So if we are saying science is about what, science is a science actually is about to learn the logic, to learn the truth of operating of a particular discipline. So in that regard, the truth of administration could be explored through the principles uh, by taking which it is functioning. So it is quite obvious. So while we are going to study an organization, we generally observe that the hierarchical structure which we cannot escape. No doubt, principles of public administration as a paradigm has been challenged by Herbert Simon, and also, of course, by the other scholars. But still, the strength to study principles as paradigm of public administration still there, because whenever we wanted to study any kind of organization, we generally begin with that how far actually that it is the level of hierarchy, how it is been determined, and how coordination is working on, how the superior subordinate relationship is been functioning. So whether it is operating in a more centralized manner or a decentralized manner, or it is giving equal value to both of the principles, both centralization and decentralization. So in that regard, actually, that the strength relating to validate the principles of organization, there is a scope for the study. Of course, it will provide you more comparative experience than just justifying that bureaucracy or public organization only following the like if you take hypothesis, sorry, if you were to take the generalization on hierarchy, that as we had little bit discussion that modern organizations, they used to stick to the legal rational hierarchy. So we may counter crisis to that understanding, that no doubt most of the modern organization, they are sticking to the legal rational hierarchy, but still the phenomenon like charisma uh, found to be prevalent. So that's why we generally make the statement like, okay, this collector is an efficient one, the previous collector is not an efficient one. So here actually we are observing from making that statement on the basis of the person's charisma. Okay, so the thing is that while studying organization or while studying administration, the science could be achieved through the principles. So principles, that how far actually administration is adopting, or the degree of acceptance of principles automatically enhances, could be an enhancing factor for our understanding that administration generally run through the principles. So they felt that if the experience of administrators are processed, okay, it could be possible to develop a science of administration. And administration, administration either to remain an art, and there is no reason why it can be developed into a science. Okay, so they gave importance to the structure of administration while almost neglecting the role of men in the organization. Okay, so the structure, so their primary concern was to study the structure of the organization rather than just to focus on the role of men in the organization. Then based on this approach and their experience, they evolved certain principles of organization. These principles elucidated by Gulick are division of work, specialization, basis of departmental organization, coordination through hierarchy, deliberate or coordination, coordination through committees, decentralization, unity of command, line and staff, delegation, and span of control. Okay, so these principles, I think they are very much visible nowadays. Okay, while we are now studying the departments, now we are also studying about that the role of specialization in the organization. Then we are also now studying the decentralization, delegation. So these things are now getting more attention in the research work of governance and public policy, particularly that how the principles of administration really behind in making governance operative. Then Luther Gulick also coined an acronym post-God, indicating the 7 important functional elements of administration. They are planning, organization, staffing, direction, coordination, reporting, and budgeting. So, of course, these things are still also found to be prevalent in most of the organization. In fact, these elements are very much ingrained while we are studying organization. Then also he had identified 8 principles of administration. They are the principle of objectives, the principle of correspondence, the principle of responsibility, the scalar principle, the principle of span of control, the principle of specialization, the principle of coordination, and the principle of definition. Okay, so in that regard, if we take into other principles we have discussed, but the principles of correspondence means that the communication channel between the organization, within the organization, how actually the members of the organization are communicating with each other. So there is a line of communication. So like the most junior person who is supposed to initiate the file system, if we try to understand it in the organization, we need to understand that how actually the filing system in the organization they proceed. So it begins with the ministerial staff, then subsequently addressed to the next superior who located at the immediate level. So the file goes in one way direction, then subsequently written with that single communication. Okay, so in that way the principle of correspondence is going on. Then, so far as the general principles of administration are concerned, so they provided a theory of departmentalization. So the theory of departmentalization that here that so far as administrative management is concerned, of course, the departments are been considered to be the first line organization to be studied. Okay, so I have also talked a little bit about the ministries, the department while discussing about the line and staff agencies. So in that regard, the Luther Gulick they talked about the theory of departmentalization, and these departments uh, are considered to be the first line organization to understand that how the administrative management theory could be ascertained in the empirical world or in the real social life. So here they have identified 4 bases on which different departments could be created. So these bases are purpose, process, person, and place. So they were popularly described and known as 4 P's of Gulick. Okay, so as I told you that every organization must have a purpose. So while if you have time, you please visit to the website of a particular department or ministry. Definitely the purpose of that department would be mentioned in the portal of the concerned department. Like present day organization, they are mentioning the vision, mission, and the history, the purpose for which they are being created. So all these things you would be able to get while you are opening of the um, um, the portal of a particular department. You will not only get the history, you will get also the justification why that department is being created. And of course you may get the thing that suppose you want to locate the history of uh, water resource department, the history of um, rural development department. So you may also counter certain facts that okay, earlier the water as a subject, water is not been considered as having an independent department, but subsequently it was under the rural development, but subsequently due to the focus on the particular issue, the water service delivery and water as a resource for the investment purpose, the need of the economy, the government felt that the water resource department needs to be created. So the purposes are actually being subject to change according to the time and the need of the demand of the population. So it automatically led towards the creation of new organizations. So the purpose itself mentioned that why that department is being created. Similarly, the process is all about the function, that how uh, the concerned department is supposed to function. So it is also that every department they are also mentioning uh, that under which law or under which act they are empowered to act, which are the subject they are supposed to uh, function. So all these things are being clearly mentioned in their um, portal, that where you will be able to get the understanding, okay, these are the laws, these are the acts for which the department is empowered to act. So it indicates not only about the acts, laws, legal provision, but also indicate that who is accountable to whom. So it will also provide it also shows that the organogram, that who is actually been responsible to report it to whom. So who is dealing what. So it also talks about the division of work. So the process actually informs us that how actually function of the organization has been undertaken, and in that process we would be able to identify that how far, how smoothly it is been able to manage itself. So nowadays actually, as the issues of grievance redressal mechanism have come up, uh, and also that how far the department is very much responsive towards the grievances or the services in time. So most of the departments have now come up with the provision for showing that in each day how many cases they have disposed. So in that way, by doing that, they are showing that they are responding smartly. uh, they are also focusing towards the good governance agenda. They are trying to be transparent by uploading all the documents and informing the public. They are trying to be updated as per the expectation of the government and citizen is concerned. Okay, so it also talks about the process. Now coming to the persons, the clientele. Well, so far as this clientele dimension is concerned, of course, the creation of an organization um, justified through the viewpoint of clientele. So if clientele they demand it, then automatically it opens up opportunity to create a new organization. So there must be a demand. And of course, if we talked about that the public administration, so whether the administration, how, under what condition administration is really thinking to open up the department. So in a parliamentary democracy like ours, of course, it is not to be it is not essentially an administrative process, it is basically a political process. So here the it is the decision of the chief executive, it is the decision of the cabinet, that whether there is a necessity to create a new department. So such things could be justified on the ground of clientele. And it is not essentially, though it is definitely the administrative principle, but at the same time it cannot be separated from the political angle or political one also. Then coming to the place, the territory. So far as the, of course, a particular department has its own jurisdiction, and this jurisdiction once again been determined by the territory of the concerned state. Okay, so once again, it is also bringing the attention towards that whether public administration is really been separated from the political science, because here that the political aspect of the state as a political entity need to identify itself through the territory. So in that territory, how that territory to be governed, once again it has to be created out of the um, political arrangement, that what would be the jurisdiction. So accordingly the jurisdiction has been, so far as subject are concerned, the areas are concerned, it is been determined through the political arrangement between the center and the state. And while coming to the within the state, of course it is to be decided on the basis of population, the extent of uh, the geography. So all these things are coming into picture over there. So these are the four P's of Luther Gulick, who extensively talked about the theory of departmentalization. And besides the theory of departmentalization, there are also other principles which we have already discussed, and like another is the unity of direction. So here that he uh, essentially not in favor of use of committees for the purposes of administration. So nowadays you definitely have come across that whenever government wanted to take any decision, so essentially it is setting up a committee. Okay, so here if you go by this principle, that it believes that one director or executive should head the organization, and Warwick warned against the use of committees for the purposes of administration. He thought boards and commissions are turned out to be failures. They are inevitably slow, cumbersome, wasteful, and ineffective. So they do not cooperate with other agencies. So that's why that the role of single administrator is much relevant in comparison to be governed by the committees and the commissions and board. Of course such kind of thing may motivate us to think that Gulick Lindell Ulrich believe in some kind of creating a authoritarian structure. Okay, then while coming to the unity of command, so he suggests that for the effective functioning of organizations, the subordinate in the organizations should receive command from one superior only. So when there would be one superior, then automatically the channel of the command will be clear. So there would be no confusion. So he agrees with the Fayol that who said a man cannot serve two masters. So automatically in an organization, if the line of communication is very clear and flows from one individual, then automatically it would be easy for the concerned other members of the organization to execute the decision. Although rigid adherence to this principle may have its absurdities, so these are unimportant in comparison with the certainty of confusion, inefficiency, and irresponsibility which arise from the violation of the principle. So here actually question arises, no doubt. The smooth running of the organization depends on that. Okay, if there would be one person at the apex level and provide a clear-cut command to the subordinates, so that they would be able to carry out the order. But whether such kind of practices could be a possibility in a democracy, particularly the bureaucratic organization who are working in a democracy, so whether is it really a possible affair for them that to stick to the rigid unity of command. So that is also a question for investigation. So anyway, so beside those kind of all these principles of organization, the administrative management as a theoretical tradition actually been subsequently lacked, or you could say that not supported with adequate research attention, because after the um, after the that when the Herbert Simon's work has come up, actually the focus went on focus sorry not focus moved on towards the decision making aspect of the organization, and also that public policy has emerged as one of the theme of research in the social science, in the social science discipline. So therefore what happened, the entire attention was shifted towards the techniques of those techniques of administration who are considered to be enabling in making public policy implementation effective. So with this, I am ending. If you have any query, you can ask. We'll go for the further discussion on the bureaucratic theory and human relations theory in the next class, and of course, we'll also relate it with that how actually the first two of the paradigms they came in crisis, and which has led towards the genesis of other paradigms like public administration as political science, public administration as public administration, and public administration as management. So there we'll focus into the aspect of that actually how human relations theory have come up as an alternative to the scientific management, where only productivity was exclusively the matter of concern, whereas administrative management only the structural aspect of the organization and the principles were only the matter of concern. But human relations theory, how actually it has once again prioritized the human being, how human being would be feel good while working in the organization. So that have come up. So with this, I am ending. Any queries or questions?
Ma'am, what type of questions can be asked from this unit?
Questions actually, I am not aware about it. You may got long questions, and also so far as pattern of questions, I am not aware. But so
Yes,
far,
ma'am. Pattern of question is 20-mark questions.
okay. So you may go for a long question answer, or you may get two short questions bearing the marks like 10 each.
Yes,
Uh,
ma'am.
I'm not quite sure about that. You just inquire it from your the coordinator. The course coordinator would be the right person to inform you. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay then. So
Thank
bye.
you.
Huh.